In June of 2009, Yang Jiaming, a professor at the Southwest University in Chongqing, was invited to Chengdu for an intangible cultural heritage exhibition. At the exhibition, craftsmen from across the country staged amazing performances. To Yang's surprise, the exhibition included traditional Tibetan medicine masks, a craft that had been considered lost for years. The inheritor of this craft, Silong Chamtse, is from Gaza Tibetan Autonomous Prefecture in Sichuan and is now in his late 50s. Silong Chamtse began learning making these masks when he was a teenager and has studied the craft for more than 40 years. He is the 5th generation inheritor of the craft. The masks are also known as Tibetan medicine mud masks. Each mask is made using ground Tibetan medicines and Chinese herbs mixed with soil. These masks have a long history as a part of Tibetan culture. They don't rot, contain no pollutants, and don't fade. The craft has been passed down orally, and there are no complete written accounts of its history. The origin of the masks is related to a 1300-year-old legend. During the reign of Songtsan Gampo, a pious old woman burning joss sticks accidentally started a fire that destroyed the temple she was praying in. Later, Songtsan Gampo and Princess Wencheng decided to rebuild the temple. The princess realized that burning joss sticks was a fire hazard and tried to find something that could replace them. Her solution was to mix Tibetan medicines, Chinese herbs, perfumes, and gems with soil and mold the mixture into statues and masks. These relics could then be blessed by monks and worshipped.
Medicine masks were derived from clay sculptures. Tibetan temples used to have burning butter lamps and joss sticks. Joss sticks and medicinal mud are closely related. Today's joss sticks usually aren't made from a single material, but from a mixture of Tibetan medicines and plant perfumes. They emit strong aromas. In addition, adding medicines can help prevent diseases.
Thus, medicine statues and masks eliminated the need to burn joss sticks and found a special place in Tibetan religious culture. The statues of Songtsan Gampo and Princess Wencheng in the Jokhang Temple were made from this medicinal mud.
The earliest Tibetan masks weren't all made of mud. Some were made of leather, that is, processed animal skins. Leather masks, in my opinion, appeared earlier than mud masks. Wall paintings in Samye Gompa show that when the monastery was inaugurated, many of the performers wore such leather masks. This indicates that at that time, they had already appeared, possibly as part of the Bon religion.
The craft of making medicine masks spans several centuries. But the appearance of masks made from Tibetan paper and cloth put the craft in danger of being lost completely.
When cloth masks and masks made using bodiless wear techniques appeared, these began to gradually replace the mud masks, and the craft began to wither.
Professor Young has studied Tibetan history, culture, and mask art for many years. Before retiring, he had searched nearly all Tibetan areas for inheritors of the craft, but his search was in vain. After the unexpected meeting at the exhibition, Young and Tselong Chamsa became good friends. During their talks, Young learned more about Tselong Chamsa and his medicine masks. Most of Tselong Chamsa's relatives are craftsmen. His uncle was skilled in many arts and was something of a local celebrity. In particular, he made excellent medicine masks. Probably influenced by his family, Tselong Chamsa has been interested in clay sculptures since childhood. The craft of mask making is passed down either through family or from master to apprentice. A family of craftsmen pass it down only within the family.
Rules for selecting inheritors are strict. Families like mine and people in ethnic regions used to be very conservative. Traditionally, according to the old rules, the inheritor must be a man. They must be family. This is why there are so few medicine mask makers now.
The first step towards learning how to make medicine masks is to master clay sculpting. The history of Tibetan clay sculpting dates back to the period of the first Senpo in Tibet, when people used clay to create human and animal figures. The arrival of Buddhism in the mid-7th century helped Tibetan sculpting develop further, and under Songtsan Gampo, the craft began to flourish. At that time, there were certain requirements for sculpting materials, including the special ingredient, cow dung.
Why was cow dung used? First, it makes the mask lighter. Also, because it contains grass. That is, plant fiber. It's pretty adhesive. Mixed with earth, it makes it stronger.
Tselong Chamsa decided to learn mask making from his uncle. Because of his uncle's strict requirements, Silong Chamtse spent nearly 5 years learning just the clay sculpting. The whole learning process was much harder than he had expected.
I wasn't a good student. My teacher, that is my uncle, hit me here. He'd put a sutra inside and then get a block of wood. He'd throw it at me. Here. He hit me many times.
To quickly master the skills of the craft, Silong Chamtse kept consulting senior craftsmen even after he got a job. Through decades of efforts, he finally mastered the unique craft of making medicine masks.
It's quite an achievement. The craft of medicine mask making was all but lost, but he saved it. And to figure out a recipe, he conducted many experiments to find out which Tibetan plants could be used as perfumes and which Tibetan medicines should be added. Among Tibetan mask makers, there are lots of people that make very good masks. Tons of them. What we lack are people who have mastered the recipe for the medicine mud. Silong Chamtse, after years of painstaking efforts, building on his predecessor's experience, has achieved just that.
Silong Chamtse lives in Shinlong County. Its Tibetan name, Nyarong, means a forested river valley. Located in the heartland of Gaza, it's nicknamed the Belly Button. It is said that the county was once part of the mythical kingdom of Ling and governed by the eldest son of King Gosar's uncle. King Gosar and his beloved concubine Brug Mo used to visit the county. Thus, Gosar culture is strong in the area. The first Chinese version of the Epic of King Gosar was found in this county by Tibetologist Ren Naiqiang in the late 1920s. Silong Chamtse has set up an ethnic handicraft workshop on a riverbank here. But the remote location hampers the promotion of their masks. The display hall is hung with lifelike medicine masks in different shapes. The mask works are mainly inspired by King Gosar and Dharmapalas from Tibetan Buddhism, especially Mahakala, Vaisravana, and Palden Lamo. There are strict guidelines governing how the Dharmapala's facial features should be portrayed.
There are various schools of mask making. Some make full head masks, some make half head ones, and the rest make face masks. Silong Chamtse makes face masks. It covers an area no wider than one's face. A half-head mask covers one's face as well as the skull. A full head mask looks like you're wearing a pot.
The process of making a mask is sacred, mysterious, and complex. There are more than 10 steps, including collecting soil, making the mud, and sculpting. The 20+ types of tools are mostly wooden and homemade. So how is a medicine mask made? What secrets does it hold? Silong Chamtse shows us the whole process in detail. Making a medicine mask begins with making medicinal mud. The earth and water used come from mountains over 4,000 meters above sea level. Sulong Chamtse collects earth and water on Mount Shunglong Chagar in Xinlong. The main peak towers spectacularly 4,600 meters above sea level. It's said that bodhisattvas used to visit the mountain, which has made it famous among Tibetans. The mountain lies less than 30 kilometers from the town. But decades ago, the poor roads meant Sulong Chamtse would spend a whole day fetching water here. Sulong Chamtse comes to collect soil and water every Saturday. According to him, the earth and water here are the best for making medicine masks. In recent years, however, his health has deteriorated and he is now driven here by members of his family. Nonetheless, to reach the water, he still has to trek for nearly 3 hours after getting off the car. According to Buddhist tradition, Sulong Chamtse can only collect water after the monks finish chanting. His uncle once said that despite the various hardships, collecting water can help calm one's soul. The soil used in the masks is collected from the other side of the mountain, not far from the water source. But the weather here is unpredictable, and the recently sunny weather has turned into a snowstorm. The soil is too wet to be of use, and Sulong Chamtse decides to come back another day. The next day, Sulong Chamtse returns with his family and apprentices. According to him, both red and white soil are used in the medicine masks. Tibetan tradition suggests that the soil has two genders. White soil is female and less adhesive, so masks made from white soil are fragile. Red soil is male and much more adhesive, making masks made from red soil much sturdier. Experienced craftsmen are skilled at mixing proper proportions of white and red soil, which greatly contributes to the sturdiness and durability of the masks.
This special earth can only be found on mountains more than 3,000 meters high. Here, it's on a mountain called Shanglong Chagar, only in one place. There's a belt about this wide, that's it. It's a belt of red earth. That's the only earth we use. Nothing else. We Tibetans call this kind of earth Recha. It means the mountain's blood vessel.
The soil and water merely form the basis for the mask. The medicines and herbs play the main role. Sichuan's vast territory, complex landforms, and suitable climate foster an abundance of herbs. The region is known in China as the land of herbal medicines. In southern and western Sichuan, there are several thousand kinds of herbs. In areas more than 3,000 meters above sea level, more than 300 kinds of Tibetan medicinal plants can be found. Silong Chumtse's uncle taught him Tibetan medicine, enabling him to identify herbs. The medicinal mud recipe includes over 100 species of medicines and herbs. April is the harvest season for Chinese caterpillar fungus. Prices have soared, and many people have stopped work to collect the fungus on the mountains. This time of year is also growth season for herbs. Just like his uncle used to do with him, Silong Chumtse often takes his apprentices into the mountains to collect herbs, teaching them how to identify the different species as they go. Different Tibetan medicines and herbs are reaped in different seasons and different places. Climate change has made some herbs harder to come by, and Silong Chumtse even has to buy some of the rarest species. When the medicines are ready, it's time to air dry and grind the soil. The finer, the better. Silong Chumtse takes out a steel yard to weigh out precise measures of medicines, perfumes, and religious articles like turquoises and red corals. This is the most important step in making the medicine masks. The recipe should be strictly followed and doesn't allow any changes. A properly made mixture will emit a pleasant aroma that can be smelled even at a distance, while a flawed one will emit a strong stench.
There's a certain number of main ingredients in a medicine mask. 1. Earth. 2. Spring water. 3. Religious articles. 4. Tibetan medicines. 5. Chinese herbs. 6. Auspicious stones. There are over 60 kinds of herbs, including Rhododelio rosea. The Tibetan medicines, like the 70 pearls, can be eaten directly. These herbal medicines contain no Western medicine. They're traditional Tibetan medicines. The last thing my uncle told me was to pay attention to the proportions. If you don't, you'll hurt people. It's bad.
Silong Chumtse and his students use rocks to pound the ingredients until they are thoroughly mixed. Tradition requires that the mixture be buried underground for 7 days to develop its aroma. However, instead of digging a hole, Silong Chumtse places the mud in a refitted metal barrel.
I have no place to bury it. I'm worried that if I make a mistake and the animals nearby start dying, I would have to stand trial So I put a barrel outside the building. I cut it in half, put the mixture inside, and covered it with quilts. I always fetch it alone. If the mixture is flawed, my eyes start to water immediately. It's strongly irritating.
His own set of between a few and several dozen differently shaped sculpting tools. These help him alter and finish the different parts of the mask. Each mask is revised several times until it adheres to the craftsman's criteria. Silong Chamtse deftly handles the different tools. Little by little, the facial features of the Dharmapala take shape. Thanks to his excellent skills, the mud gradually turns into a Dharmapala mask.
The materials are abundant in West China. Some of them can be found only on extremely high mountains, like Mount Komolangma. These turquoise, red, and yellow stones are all minerals. They are ground up and soaked in water and left overnight. Then, the upper layer of water is poured out. Impurities float in the middle, and the minerals fall to the bottom.
The masks are painted using differently sized brushes. In Tibetan areas, the mask makers make the brushes themselves. Most are made using squirrel hairs, while the best ones are made using hairs from a rock rat species unique to the Qinghai Tibetan Plateau. After the paint has dried, the craftsman inscribes scripture lines on the back of the mask and seals a scripture scroll inside it. Silong Chamtse's family has adopted a scorpion as their trademark. Making one mask usually takes at least 12 days. After a mask is completed, senior monks are invited to bless it. Medicine masks can decorate the homes of people of all schools of Tibetan Buddhism, while smaller ones can be carried about. In addition to emitting their unique scent, the medicines in the masks also expel parasites, remove odors, and act as disinfectant. Now, Sulong Chamsa is most concerned about finding a successor. Few people are learning the skill. Counting the apprentices, there are no more than 20 medicine mask makers in China's Tibetan areas. Sulong Chamsa doesn't want the ancestral craft to disappear on his watch.
I want a steady person as my inheritor. That's the most important. My first criteria is that he should strictly abide by the ancient Indian techniques and the Tibetan techniques. The style can't change. It can't. That's the first criteria. The second one is that he must follow the original recipe. Follow it word by word.
Because the craft has to stay in the family, Sulong Chamsa has taken his two nephews as his apprentices. Although the two have studied with him for 6 years already, mastering the skill will take at least 4 more years. Even after all these years, they still haven't been allowed to learn the most important step, the medicine recipe.
I haven't told anyone how to mix the ingredients. I daren't. People today are greedy. My students as well. People do anything for money. They kill living things. They do bad things. Things that have legal consequences.
Sulong Chamsa explains that following the recipe strictly will make a mask fragrant. Any minor fault is enough to make it rancid and toxic. Thus, the recipe must be given to a good and honest man. Sulong Chamsa has been looking for a reliable successor for a long time. However, because of the potential danger of the recipe, he has resolved that he will not pass it down rashly, even if that means the craft will be lost.
If the cultural and spiritual wealth passed down is lost in our generation, we will be at fault. But they don't care about that. They only think about money. If they earn 400 yuan today, tomorrow they'll want 600.
For centuries, medicine mask makers have passed down not only the craft, but also a sense of morality. If a successor were to lose his moral compass, the craft would lose its value and reason to exist. As Sulong Chamsa resolved to popularize the mask, a new problem appeared. Making a mask is a complex process that requires large amounts of medicines and involves several secret techniques. Even a simple mask takes a long time to complete. However, the fact that they are made from mud means that the market price is low. To the apprentices, finding a job as a driver in the county seat seems more likely to improve their lives than learning this ancient craft. The low prices meant Sulong Chamsa had to think of something. In 2004, he began to develop molds for his masks, and after numerous failures, he created the first ever mold for making medicine masks. Thus, the traditional folk craft was combined with modern techniques for the first time. Silong Chamsa soon began adding elements of modern fine art to the ancient craft, increasing the number of different masks from less than 20 to nearly 200. Three of these masks have received patents. Silong Chamsa is as devoted as ever to the medicine masks. According to him, passing on the ancestral culture is every craftsman's greatest responsibility. His biggest wish is to find an apprentice to inherit this legacy before the end of his life. He also hopes to write a book about the history of the medicine mud mask, as well as his decades of experience in making them. He decided on a name for the book a long time ago. He will call it Medicine Mud Masks.